The warning alarms had been screaming for 6 hours when Commander Lee Min-ho finally turned them off. The sound was making his crew crazy, and they needed clear minds for what was coming next. "Give me a report," he called out across the command center of Kepler Station. The room was full of flashing red lights and people running around trying to fix things that kept breaking. "The outer shields are down to 12%, said Lieutenant Park Soo-jin from her computer station. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing screens that showed the enemy fleet coming toward them. The Vorth swarm looked like thousands of angry insects flying through space. Each ship was alive, grown instead of built, with weapons that could spit acid and holes that could heal themselves when damaged. "We have maybe 1 hour before they break through our last defenses," Soo-jin added, her voice tight with worry. "Engineer." Kim Ja-woo looked up from his control panel. Sweat was running down his face. "I can take power from the life support systems to give us 20 more minutes, but after that, ... He did not need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen then. Kepler Station had been humanity's farthest outpost in the star system. It was supposed to be a safe place where humans worked together, with their alien friends to mine valuable minerals from the nearby asteroids. Now it was about to become their tomb. The station was home to 3 different species. Humans ran most of the operations and made the big decisions. The Nexari were tall, thin beings, made of living crystal, who could talk to each other through musical sounds. They were excellent engineers and could fix almost anything. The Keth looked like large frogs, with thick armor-like skin and 4 arms. Each they were natural fighters and had taken charge of defending the station. "Any news from our distress signal?" Min-ho asked. Even though he already knew the answer would be bad, Communications Officer Song Hai-jin shook her head sadly. "Nothing, sir. The Vorth are jamming all our signals. Even if Earth got our message, they are weeks away from here." Through the thick windows of the command center, they could see the Vorth fleet getting closer. The enemy ships pulsed with strange lights as they talked to each other without using radio waves. They moved together like a swarm of bees, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. The Vorth were not like other enemies humans had fought before. They did not want to capture territory or steal resources. They wanted to destroy everything. That was not like them. They'd been spreading across the galaxy for thousands of years, turning entire star systems into empty wastelands. "They are starting their final attack," Soo-jin announced. "Impact in 47 minutes. Min-ho stood up and looked at his crew. Humans Nexari and Keth had worked together for 3 years. They'd become like family, sharing meals, celebrating holidays, and helping each other through hard times. Now they were going to die together. "We all knew this day might come," Min-ho said in a strong voice that carried across the room. "The Vorth do not take prisoners. They do not make deals. But we are not going to die quietly at the first enemy." Weapons hit the outer shields, making the entire station shake. Now the lights flickered and several computer screens went dark. Emergency blast doors began closing automatically as the outer sections lost air pressure. In the engineering section, Ja-woo worked frantically to keep the power systems running. Round him, Nexar engineers sang their musical language as they repaired damaged circuits. The sound was both beautiful and sad, like a funeral song for a dying world. The Keth warriors had spread out through the station, taking positions at every place where the enemy might break through. Their leader, Lieutenant Kolmesh, checked his weapons one last time. His thick skin could stop bullets, and his 4 arms meant he could fight with multiple weapons at once. But even he looked worried as he watched the enemy ships getting closer. "The outer defense grid is failing," reported Soo-jin. "They will be through in 30 minutes. Min-ho nodded grimly. He had hoped they might last longer, but the Vorth were even stronger than expected. Their living ships could absorb damage that would destroy normal vessels, and they had so many that it did not matter how many humans destroyed. "All units fall back to the intersections," Min-ho ordered. "We will make our stand there." As the defenders retreated deeper into the station, they could hear the sounds of the outer hull being torn apart. The Vorth ships were not just shooting at them, they were actually eating through the metal walls with their acid weapons. Jae-woo stayed at his post in engineering, preparing to overload the fusion reactor. If everything went wrong, he could turn the entire station into a bomb that would take thousands of enemy ships with them. It would be quick, a flash of nuclear fire that would vaporize everything within 1,000 kilometers. Sir Hai-jin suddenly called out, her voice filled with surprise. I am reading big energy signatures on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts coming at faster than light speeds. Minho felt his heart jump. More Vorth ships? No, sir. The signatures are ... They are human. Through the station's dying sensors, they watched as space itself seemed to rip open, showing the sharp edges of Earth's dropships as they came out of hyperspace. Help had arrived. The outer defensive grid fell within an hour, exactly as Minho had predicted. Emergency doors sealed shut automatically as air rushed out of the broken sections. The survivors moved deeper into the station's core areas. The reactor is still working, Jae-woo reported from his emergency command post in the engineering section. His hands moved quickly over the controls as he tried to keep the power flowing to the remaining defenses. If I overload the fusion containment, we can take a few thousand of them with us when we go. Not yet, Minho ordered through the communication system. Make them fight for every room. The Nexari engineer Veltar had been working with the humans for months, and its crystal body now made deep, sad sounds that seemed to shake through the station's walls. The music was both beautiful and frightening, like a song you would sing at a funeral for a dying world. The other Nexari had joined in the singing, their voices creating harmonies that made the metal corridors ring like bells. They knew they were going to die, but their culture taught them to face death with dignity and beauty. The sound gave comfort to the humans in Keth who were preparing for the final battle. Lieutenant Kolmesh of the Keth had placed his warriors at important choke points throughout the station. Their thick, armor-like skin could stop small weapons, and their forearms made them dangerous fighters in close combat. But even these tough warriors seemed quiet and worried as the Vorth bioplasma began eating through the final blast doors. They have broken through Section C, reported Sujin from her station. Vorth ground forces are coming inside. The creatures that crawled out of the holes in the station walls were like nightmares come to life. They looked like giant insects with razor-sharp claws and jaws that could cut through steel. They moved together with perfect coordination, each individual ready to die for the good of the swarm. The first group of Vorth soldiers scuttled down the corridors on 6 legs, their black shells gleaming under the emergency lights. They made clicking sounds as they communicated with each other, planning their attack with the efficiency of a hive mind. Fall back to the core, Minho ordered all remaining defenders. We will make our last stand there. As the human and alien defenders retreated, they could hear the sounds of the Vorth cutting through more walls. The creatures were not just breaking down doors, they were actually reshaping the station's interior to suit their needs, turning human corridors into insect tunnels. A group of human security guards tried to hold a position near the cafeteria, but the Vorth overwhelmed them with sheer numbers. For every creature they killed, 2 more took its place. The defenders were forced to abandon their positions and run toward the central command area. Jae-woo remained at his post in engineering, working on the reactor controls. His plan was simple but deadly. If the Vorth got too close, he would cause the fusion reactor to explode. The nuclear fire would destroy the entire station and everything around it for hundreds of kilometers. The blast doors in Section B are failing, reported one of the Keth warriors over the radio. Cannot hold them much longer. Minho looked around the command center at the faces of his crew.
Humans Nexari
And Keth, who had worked together, eaten together, and become friends over the past 3 years. Now they were going to die together, but they would not go down without a fight. All remaining personnel, report to the command center, he announced. We will make our final stand here. The survivors gathered in the large room at the heart of the station. There were maybe 50 people left out of the original 2,000. They had small weapons and whatever tools they could find. It was not much against an enemy that had destroyed entire star systems. The sounds of the Vorth were getting closer. They could hear the clicking of claws on metal floors and the hiss of acid eating through walls. The creatures were taking their time now, knowing that their prey had nowhere left to run. Minho asked Jae-woo through the communication system. 5 minutes, sir? Maybe less if they break through to engineering. The Nexari continued their death song, their crystal voices creating music that seemed to come from another world. Some of the humans found it comforting, while others found it made them more afraid. The Keth warriors simply checked their weapons one more time and prepared to sell their lives as dearly as possible. Sir Hygen suddenly called out, her voice sharp with disbelief. I am reading massive energy signatures on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts, approaching at faster than light speeds. Minho felt his heart skip a beat. After hours of silence, something was finally showing up on their sensors. Are they more Vorth ships? Negative, sir. The signatures are, they are human. Everyone in the command center stopped what they were doing and stared at the sensor display. Through the station's dying detection systems, they watched as space itself seemed to tear open like cloth, revealing the angular shapes of Earth's dropships as they dropped out of hyperspace. The cavalry had arrived, and they were coming in fast and angry. Captain Udahein had been born for moments like this. As his dropship Thunderbolt screamed through space toward Kepler Station, he felt the familiar calm that always came before a big fight. All units, this is Thunderlead. He spoke into his radio to all the other pilots in his squadron. Our main job is to make a safe path to the station. Our second job is to destroy every Vorth ship in this system. Any questions? Sir, came the voices of his pilots through the communication system. The first wave of Earth's first orbital assault division hit the Vorth fleet like a giant hammer. Human engineers had learned something important from every fight it ever had with the swarm. The Vorth ships could heal themselves and worked together like a hive mind, but human ships used special shields that could change and pilots who could think for themselves. Lieutenant Commander Han So-young flew her dropship Stormrider straight through a group of Vorth cruisers. Her energy barriers bounced away the enemy's bioplasma while her own weapons cut through the living hulls like hot knives through butter. Contact. 3 enemy ships, closing in behind me. I've got your back, Stormrider. It's called Major Otajan from his ship Iron Fist. His missile pods opened up like deadly flowers, sending smart bombs spinning toward the Vorth ships that were chasing Soyoung. The battle was not like anything the Vorth had ever seen before. Humans did not fight like the other species the swarm had conquered. They did not run away when things got bad, and they did not surrender when they were outnumbered. Instead, they changed their tactics, came up with new ideas, and fought back even harder when the enemy thought they were winning. Thunderlead, this is Station Command, came Minho's voice through the radio. Whatever you are doing out there, keep doing it. The Vorth ground forces are pulling back from the station. Daehyun smiled as he sent another bioship spinning into the darkness, its organic hull spilling air and alien fluids into space. Copy that. Station Command. We are just getting started. The dropships had been built specifically for breakthrough operations. They were heavily armored, could move quickly, and packed enough firepower to level a small moon. As they carved through the Vorth fleet, like a sword through flesh. More human ships kept arriving, wave after wave of Earth's best fighters. The Vorth had never faced anything like this. Their bioships were alive, grown in massive breeding pools instead of built in factories. They could heal minor damage and coordinate perfectly with the rest of the swarm. But they were not prepared for the concentrated firepower of human weapons. All units form up on me, Daehyun ordered his squadron. We are going to punch a hole straight through to the station. The human formation moved like a spear being thrown, focusing all their fire on one spot in the enemy's defensive line. Bioships that had seemed impossible to destroy suddenly exploded under the combined assault of human. Plasma cannons and kinetic penetrators that could punch through anything. The Vorth tried to adapt to the human tactics, but their hive mind was not used to dealing with enemies who could think independently. Every human pilot made different choices, attacked from different angles, and used different weapons. The swarm could not predict what they would do next. Enemy reinforcements coming from the 4th planet, reported Soyoung as she dodged between 2 massive Vorth battleships. Looks like they are bringing in the heavy units. Let them come, replied Taejun as he launched another volley of missiles. We have been waiting for a real fight. The new Vorth ships were bigger and more dangerous than the first wave. They had thicker armor, more weapons, and could regenerate damage faster. But they were also slower and less maneuverable than the human dropships. Daehyun led his squadron in a high-speed attack run on the largest Vorth battleship. The creature was the size of a small city, with hundreds of weapon ports and a hull that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. It looked invincible. "Target the neural clusters," Daehyun ordered. "If we can disrupt its brain functions, the rest of the ship will shut down." The human pilots dove toward the massive bioship like hawks attacking a giant. Their weapons found the weak spots in its armor, places where the neural pathways were close to the surface. Each hit disrupted the creature's ability to coordinate its defenses. The battleship began to convulse. As its nervous system was damaged, its weapons fired randomly, sometimes hitting its own escort ships. The other Vorth vessels tried to help, but they were too busy dealing with the other human squadrons. "Direct hit on the primary neural cluster," reported Sa Young. "The target is going into death spasms." The massive bioship rolled over and went dark, its weapons falling silent. The other Vorth ships seemed to panic, their perfect coordination breaking down as they realized their strongest unit had been destroyed. Within minutes, the corridor to Kepler Station was open. The human dropships had done the impossible. They had broken through a Vorth defensive line that should have been unbreakable. "Station Command, this is Thunderled," Daehyun announced. "The road is clear. We are coming to get you." Admiral Cho Yoonji watched the battle displays from the bridge of the huge warship Indomitable. Her face showed grim satisfaction as she saw the scope of humanity's response becoming clear. The largest rescue fleet in human history had mobilized the moment Kepler Station's distress call reached Earth. "Wave 7 is coming out of hyperspace now," reported her tactical officer. "That is 64 more dropships with their escort ships. Send a message to all units," Yoonji ordered. "No Vorth ship leaves this system alive. We end this threat here and now." The rescue operation had been planned with the kind of efficiency that only humans could achieve. While the dropships fought to create a safe corridor and began pulling people off the station, carrier groups moved to attack the main Vorth fleet. Orbital bombardment platforms took positions to make sure the enemy could not escape. Captain Lim Woo-jin led the boarding parties that turned Vorth bioships into floating graves. Human soldiers in powered armor moved through the living corridors like angels of death, their weapons designed specifically to fight the swarm's ability to heal itself. "The ship is trying to heal around us," reported Sergeant Kang Myung, as her squad fought through a Vorth cruiser's organic interior. The walls were actually alive, trying to grow shut behind them to trap the humans inside. "The neural disruptors are working. It cannot coordinate its defenses." The neural disruptors were a new human invention. They sent out electrical pulses that confused the bioship's nervous systems, making it impossible for them to heal properly or communicate with the rest of the swarm. It was like giving the living ships a stroke. Back on Kepler Station, the evacuation proceeded with military precision. Combat medics treated wounded people, while engineers worked to save important data and equipment. The surviving Nexarian Keth watched in amazement as thousands of human soldiers secured the facility with ruthless efficiency. "Your people crossed half the galaxy for us," Velter communicated to Minho through its musical language. "Did not think such a thing was possible." "You are part of the crew," Minho replied simply. "We do not abandon family." The human soldiers worked with incredible speed and organization. They had practiced this kind of rescue operation hundreds of times, but never on such a large scale. Every person knew exactly what their job was. They did it without hesitation. Medical teams rushed through the station's corridors, treating both human and alien wounded. They had brought special equipment to handle Nexari crystal fractures and Keth shell damage. To the humans, it did not matter what species someone was if they were hurt. They got help. Engineering teams worked to restore power to damaged sections of the station. They wanted to save as much of the facility as possible, not just because it was valuable, but because it represented 3 years of cooperation between different species. "Admiral, the Vorth are trying to break through our perimeter," reported the tactical officer. "They are concentrating their forces on the northern flank." "Redirect the 3rd Fleet to intercept," Yoonji ordered without hesitation, "and tell them to use the new plasma torpedoes." The plasma torpedoes were another human innovation. Unlike regular missiles, they could burn through the Vorth's regenerative armor and keep burning until they reached vital organs. The bioships could not heal fast enough to survive them, The battle in space was turning into a massacre. The Vorth had expected to face a small human patrol, maybe a few destroyers at most. Instead, they found themselves fighting the combined might of Earth's military forces. Human fighters swarmed around the larger Vorth vessels like angry wasps. Their pilots used tactics that the hive mind could not understand or predict. Where? The swarm relied on coordination and overwhelming numbers. Humans used creativity and individual skill. The enemy is starting to retreat, reported another officer. Several bioships are trying to escape to hyperspace, Nagadumji said. Coldly, I want them all destroyed. Send word to the bombardment platforms. Anything that tries to run gets turned into space dust. The orbital bombardment platforms were massive weapons designed to attack planets. Against the Vorth fleet, they were like using a sledgehammer to swat flies. The bioships that tried to escape were vaporized before they could reach safe distance. Meanwhile, the boarding parties continued their deadly work. Human soldiers moved through Vorth ships like ghosts, appearing wherever the enemy least expected them. They used their knowledge of the bioship's anatomy against them, targeting nerve clusters and vital organs with surgical precision. This is Boarding Team Alpha, reported Wu Jin. We have secured the bridge of the enemy flagship. The creature is dead. The death of the flagship sent panic through the remaining Vorth forces. Without their command ship, the hive mind began to break down. Individual bioships started acting erratically, some fleeing while others attacked anything that moved. The Vorth had made a terrible mistake. They had seen humanity's kindness to other species and mistaken it for weakness. They did not understand that humans became most dangerous when they were protecting something they cared about, as the last Vorth ships either fled or burned. The rescue fleet completed its mission. Every human, Nexari, and Keth on Kepler Station had been saved. The message was clear throughout the galaxy. Earth's children might be scattered among the stars, but they were never truly alone. The silence that followed the battle was almost scary. Where hours before the space around Kepler Station had been filled with the sounds of dying ships and flashing weapons, now there was only the quiet hum of human vessels setting up a protective circle around the station. Admiral Cho Yunji stood in the station's rebuilt command center, watching as the last of the Vorth fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Her message to the running enemy had been sent on all radio frequencies, making sure that every species in this part of the galaxy would hear it. Let this be understood throughout the galaxy, she had said, her voice carrying the weight of Earth's entire military power. We protect our own. Attack any human colony, threaten any human ship, harm any being under our protection, and we will find you. We will cross any distance, fight any enemy, and pay any price to bring you to justice. The message was already spreading through the galactic communication networks. Species that had never heard of humans before were suddenly very interested in learning about Earth. The Vorth swarm, which had been considered unstoppable for thousands of years, had been destroyed by newcomers that most aliens had dismissed as primitive. Commander Lee Minho approached the Admiral, his uniform still showing burn marks from the battle. Ma'am, the final casualty reports are in. We lost 37 people during the siege, but the rescue operation saved over 2,000 humans and our alien friends. Yangji nodded seriously. 37 heroes who held the line until we could arrive. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. The number was surprisingly small. Human military doctrine emphasized saving lives, not throwing them away. Every soldier who died had saved dozens of others through their sacrifice. Their names would be remembered on Earth and in every human colony. The Nexari engineer, Veltar, had been watching the human rescue operation with growing fascination. The crystal being had never seen anything like it. Now, it approached Minho with a question that had been vibrating through its crystalline matrix for hours. Commander, it harmonized in its musical language, we have studied your species for many cycles. Your ability to fight is well known, but so is your kindness. How do you balance these opposite traits? How can you fight with such anger for beings you have never met? Minho looked around the command center, where human soldiers worked alongside Nixari technicians and Keth warriors to to fix the station systems. The cooperation was smooth and natural, as if they had been fighting together for years instead of just hours. Other species had tried to understand humans before, but they always focused on the wrong things. They saw human wars and thought humans were violent. They saw human generosity and thought humans were weak. They never understood that both came from the same source. "It is simple," Minho replied. "When our people call, we answer. Distance does not matter. Numbers do not matter. The odds do not matter. If someone needs help, if someone is in danger, we come running. That is what makes us human." The response echoed through the station's corridors. It's translated into harmonic frequencies for the Nexori and chemical signals for the Keth. It was a simple truth that had just changed the political landscape of the entire galaxy. A young human soldier named Park Jinwoo was helping a wounded Keth warrior when he overheard the conversation. He had joined the military to see the galaxy, not to fight wars. But when the call came to rescue Kepler Station, he had volunteered immediately. "The Keth are good people," he told the alien medic, treating his patient. "They shared their food with us during the long shifts. When the Vorth came, they fought just as hard as any human." This was the secret that other species had missed. Humans did not just protect other humans, they protected anyone who had earned their loyalty. The crew of Kepler Station had become a family. Humans would do anything to protect their family. As the rescue fleet prepared to escort the repaired station back to safer space, word of the battle spread through the galactic community. The Vorth swarm had been the nightmare that haunted every species' dreams. They had destroyed entire civilizations, turning flourishing worlds into empty wastelands. But Earth's children had faced the nightmare and won. They had not just survived, they had utterly destroyed their enemies. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humans were not just another member of the galactic community. They were its protectors. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving messages from 17 different species. They all want to establish formal alliances with Earth." Yonji smiled grimly. "Tell them we will consider their requests, but make it clear that any alliance with humanity comes with responsibilities. We protect our friends, but we also expect them to help protect others." The Nexari continued to ask questions about human nature, but the Keth seemed to understand instinctively. They were warriors themselves, and they recognized the quality that made humans so dangerous. It was not their weapons or their tactics. It was their refusal to abandon those who counted. On them, as the last human ship prepared to leave the system, Minho stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the surviving Vorth were spreading word of what had happened. The message would reach every corner of the galaxy. Earth's children might be scattered among the stars, but they were never truly alone. When they called for help, the dropships would come.